A countdown video? It sure has been a while, hasn't it? Despite the fact that I've been caught up with vlogging my summer adventures, this type of content isn't going anywhere, and I have lots more of it planned once the season is over. The reason I'm here today is to count down my top 15 most anticipated European roller coasters in 2024. In case you've missed the news, we're just a few short weeks from our next great international coaster trip, this time covering as much of the European continent as I've yet to visit as possible. I won't list all of the 30 plus theme parks we'll be visiting, but to just give a brief rundown on the different countries that'll be included this year, there's the United Kingdom, Ireland, Belgium, Germany, Austria, Turkey, Finland, Netherlands, and France. Several of these are new to me, and others that I've been to on past Europe trips have experienced new additions in the form of big new roller coasters. Either that, or I'm just craving more rides on something. Ride to happiness. Now, in order to distinguish my criteria for ranking my most anticipated coasters, understand that this isn't how I expect them to rank by ride quality. Often the rides I'm most intrigued by are either fresh new additions, extremely unique, or, and this is a big one, loosely discussed. Somehow, even throughout the European continent where there's tons of roller coaster enthusiasts, there are so many attractions that appear exceptional yet aren't frequently talked about for one reason or another. Usually this is because they are a bit difficult to reach and require you to go off the beaten path, which is precisely my plan. So I look forward to sharing this content with you all, but for the time being, let's count down my 15 most anticipated roller coasters. Number 15, Maximus der Flug des Vaches at Legoland Deutschland. Wing coasters are one of Bolliger and Mabillard's most successful ride models, and a personal guilty pleasure of mine. So when I saw that they were building a miniature version with all this adorable theming, I knew I had to try it. With a height of 55 feet and speeds of just 33 miles per hour, I doubt this attraction will pack much of a punch for thrill seekers. However, I was surprised to see a Legoland coaster feature inversions for the first time, which has been surprisingly well received with the public. Who knows, maybe we'll see more rides like this open at Legoland parks worldwide. Could you imagine a mini dive coaster, for example? The possibilities are endless. Number 14, Tornado at Sarkaniemi in Finland. We all know Vekoma suspended looping coasters are trash, but did you know Intamin has their own version? Only two were ever built, the other of which goes by the same name at Parque de Atracciones in Spain, and having been on it before, it's solid for what it is, but the layout on this Tornado looks a whole hell of a lot better. Not only does it have two more inversions, making for a total of 5, but several of them are quite interesting. For example, you have the only Cobra roll Intamin's ever put on an invert, as well as two Heartline rolls that look eerily reminiscent to what you used to be able to find on Volcano at King's Dominion. Having also been on Volcano in 2018, I'm sure those last two elements will bring a sense of nostalgia, so I can't wait to try this thing out. Number 13, Olympia Looping at Wiener Prater in Austria. For this one, it's really the novelty of it that has it in my top 15. Not only is it the world's largest traveling roller coaster, meaning it's disassembled and reassembled at different fun fairs, but it's also got the most inversions on any ride by Schwarzkopf. This legendary German manufacturer was well regarded for its innovation in forceful vertical loops, of which Olympia Looping has 5 of varying colors. It's so iconic with the different Olympic rings, and I'm sure the ride experience is fun too. Plus, it's extra cool for me having been on Alpina Bahn in 2022, which is the second largest traveling coaster. Can't wait for this one overall. Number 12, Kulin at Emerald Park. For the longest time, Ireland's only major roller coaster was this massive Gravity Group Woody that looks to have a spectacular layout. It was never quite enough to get me to solely fly to the country for, but this year they've invested in another big coaster, and we'll get to that one later. But part of me still thinks this could be the better ride overall, with it being the tallest and fastest coaster in the country and featuring a whole bunch of airtime hills. The Gravity Group has always been one of my favorite manufacturers, and their large rides are somewhat scarce, making each of them a special experience. Number 11, Nepis at Via Land. The Intamin launch coaster is one of the best and most well-received ride models in production, and although this one looks to be a bit on the shorter side, there's no doubt that it should pack in some awesome elements. I for one am also a sucker for when you have big roller coasters smack dab in a city, and the location for this ride right in the heart of Istanbul is incredible. Turkey in general is home to 3 fascinating coasters that I can't wait to experience, and Nepis is no exception. Number 10, Smiler at Alton Towers in the UK. I've been waiting years to finally get to try the roller coaster with the most inversions in the world. Condensed within 3,800 feet of track are 14 inversions of varying shapes and sizes. And with how many trains this coaster can run, it looks mesmerizing from off-ride. Speaking of which, another reason the Smiler has always been on my bucket list is its demented theme and soundtrack. I can't wait to see it all in full display when I visit my most anticipated park of the trip at the end of this month. Number 9, Fen Force at Emerald Park. The first of a couple new for 2024 roller coasters I'll be riding, Fen Force is only the second suspended thrill coaster ever built by Vekoma. They've really come a long way from their horrid SLCs and boomerangs, now designing layouts like this that look to pack in some great inversions, airtime, and intensity. Not to mention, the inclusion of just a lap bar should allow this ride to shine just a little bit brighter. I did get to do the prototype suspended thrill coaster at Tripsdrill in Germany. Hallzuberkopf is definitely a fun ride, but I feel like this layout looks all the more impressive. Number 8, Nemesis Reborn at Alton Towers. In 1994, Nemesis opened the rave reviews and until 2 years ago was regarded as one of the world's best and most unique inverted coasters. But the ride was reaching the end of its service life and the park had to make a decision. Either tear it down or completely retrack it. But I don't think there was ever any doubt they'd go with the former because Nemesis was always one of the most influential coasters in the industry. So new for this year, we have Nemesis Reborn, and not only am I so glad I'll finally get to experience this layout, but the theming upgrades have been terrific as well. It's a full package ride now, which sounds right up my alley. Number 7, Wild Train at Fantasiana. When I heard this ride was going to be closing permanently at the end of the year, I knew I had to find a way to include Austria in our trip plans. Wild Train is one of those rides that you'd be wrong to judge by its cover. Despite its height of under 60 feet and speeds of just 30 miles per hour, reviews have communicated that this has airtime on the level of the most well-respected RMCs. Now it does seem abrupt, so whether or not this will be the most comfortable remains to be seen, but god, it's such an intriguing ride and I'm so grateful to get the chance to do it before it's gone. Number 6, Junker at Power Park in Finland. A few years ago I rode a Gerstlauer Infinity coaster, Monster at Adventureland, and fell in love with it. When I found out there was a very similar ride with a stupid powerful launch, I placed it sky high on my to-do list, and here we are in 2024, I'll finally be making the trek to ride it. Admittedly, it's not the easiest park to reach without a car, but I still find it shocking how little known this coaster is, adding a sense of intrigue around it. Personally, I'd be surprised if this weren't one of my favorite Gerstlauers, and a top 5 coaster within all the Nordic countries. Number 5, Mooka at Walibi-Rhône-Alpes in France. As someone who's never tried Big Dipper in Australia, the Intamin single rail coaster is going to be a new model for me, and Mooka far and away seems to be the more impressive of the two rides. With 2 tire-driven launches, 3 inversions, tons of bunny hills, and some surprisingly great theming, it's got everything I'm looking for in a coaster. Let's just hope it rides well, and we'll see where it lands in my rankings. By the way, it's a cool full circle moment how I saw all these construction fences around during my first visit to the park, and at the time we had no idea what it was going to be. As it just so happens, the ride was big enough to get me to come back here just 2 years later. Number 4, Hypercoaster at Land of Legends in Turkey. Prior to this trip, I've ridden a grand total of 0 hypercoasters by Mach Rides. Soon I'll be able to say I've done 2 of them, and we'll get to the other one later, but this ride looks criminally underrated in its own right. With a unique layout consisting of, yes, camelbacks and bunny hills, but also 2 inversions including the tallest vertical loop in the world, it looks to be an extremely interesting experience. It was quite literally the only reason for flying to Antalya, meaning we're having to make quite a bit of a detour to do this, but assuming the ride at minimum cracks my top 100, it'll have been worth the effort. Number 3, Redfire at VSE in Turkey. I've basically been obsessed with this ride since I first discovered it, and I knew at some point I'd have to at least attempt to ride it. Redfire is a clone of Ice Speed at Italy's Maribolandia, a park and country I've yet to visit, so I'm stoked to try this layout out for the first time. And unlike Ice Speed, this one runs with only lap bar restraints, meaning the whip you experience is probably going to be super intense. Knowing my taste, it's probably going to be a top level coaster on this trip. It is a pretty fast launch, a nearly 200-foot top hat, lots of fast-paced low-to-the-ground moments, and overall just appears to be a powerhouse from start to finish. Number 2, Hyperion at Thorpe Park. This is one of the big new rides everyone's been talking about this year, seeing as it broke the record for tallest roller coaster in the UK after 30 whole years. Despite maybe being a little on the short side, the layout is packed with elements we've never seen on any other hypercoaster. That first drop looks absolutely absurd, going way beyond vertical, twisting 236 feet in the air. You're also thrown into some wicked inversions and airtime hills, and the element that excites me the most, that outer bank hill that finishes in a barrel roll down drop. I have so many questions ranging from whether you'll be able to tell if you're upside down or right side up, to will it even be the best part of the ride. There's so many ballsy elements on Hyperion, and from all the reviews I've heard, it's finally given the country a world-class roller coaster. But I still don't even think it's that close for me. My number 1 most anticipated ride on this trip is Voltron at Europa Park. I was already awaiting the day I'd get to return to Germany's theme parks, but when Voltron was announced and looked to potentially be the best ride in the country's history, I knew 2024 was going to be the year. This is the first time Mach has unveiled their Striker model, which is essentially a far more complex Big Dipper coaster for larger parks. Seeing as Europa Park is the company's testing ground, it only made sense for them to go all out so that they could demonstrate the Striker's potential to possible buyers. What they came up with is a stupid long ride with 4 launches, including the first to go past vertical, 7 inversions, tons of airtime moments, immaculate theming, some of the sleekest, most advanced trains on the market, and the list goes on. It seems to me like it could be a near-perfect ride, so of course I have very high expectations, and that's why it's the #1 spot for this year's trip to Europe. But I think I've said enough about how pumped I am to get this trip started. I will see you all very soon with the first of more than 30 vlogs that should span several months. In the meantime though, I have lots of other vlog content from my recent hiking trip to the Blue Ridge Mountains featuring Carowinds, Dollywood, and Beach Bend, along with a short week-long New England trip where we'll check out lots of small parks in New Hampshire and Maine, along with my final 2 Six Flags parks in New York and Quebec, Canada. Hopefully none of you guys are sick of my vlogs, but as I said, I do hope to diversify my content again once this is all over. So be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to Coaster Dash for more content in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye guys.